The land of Israel has been the stage of some of the most remarkable and tragic stories in human history. From ancient kingdoms to modern technological marvels, its story is a mixture of survival, conflict, faith, and resilience. But how has the small nation constantly threatened by destruction continued to survive? And why does the struggle over their land continue even today? In this video, we will explore the full history of Israel, step by step, unveiling aspects of their story that would leave you in shock. From Canaan to the Promised Land. Here, we start from the beginning. Long before the modern state of Israel existed, the land we now call Israel was known as Canaan. This region stretched from the Mediterranean coast to the Jordan River, encompassing fertile plains, hills, and valleys that made it ideal for agriculture and settlement. It was a crossroads of civilizations, attracting traders, invaders, and settlers from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. The soil was rich, and the climate allowed the cultivation of wheat, barley, olives, and grapes. Rivers and springs provided water in a largely arid region, giving life to villages and towns. These features combined to make Canaan a highly desirable territory. The early inhabitants were a mix of tribal communities who gradually developed city-states. According to biblical and archaeological sources, the Israelites later emerged in this landscape, claiming it as the Promised Land. The concept of the Promised Land was tied to religious beliefs and survival, as it represented a homeland where the Israelites could thrive despite centuries of displacement. It was both a spiritual destination and a practical home, with fertile land, strategic routes, and defensible terrain. The origins of the Israelites trace back to Abraham, who left the bustling urban world of Mesopotamia and traveled west into unfamiliar territory because God promised that this land would become home to his descendants. His family line continued through Isaac and Jacob's 12 sons became leaders of the tribes that would later form the nation of Israel. One of these sons, Joseph, was sold into slavery by his brothers and taken to Egypt. His rise from prisoner to becoming second in command under Pharaoh created a dramatic turn in their family story. When famine hit Canaan, Joseph's position allowed the entire family to relocate to Egypt, where they were welcomed and settled in the Nile Delta. Over generations, their population grew until a new pharaoh, who feared their numbers, enslaved them and forced them into harsh labor projects. Their liberation began when Moses confronted Pharaoh after a series of plagues devastated Egypt. When Pharaoh finally released them, the Israelites fled, crossing the Red Sea and watching the pursuing Egyptian army drown. Their escape marked a new chapter, but instead of marching straight into Canaan, they spent 40 years wandering through the wilderness. During this time, they formed laws, built communal traditions, and shifted from a group of former slaves to a society capable of taking and governing land. The wilderness journey became a defining period that shaped their unity and identity. Moses guided them to the borders of Canaan, but because of earlier disobedience, he was not allowed to enter the land himself. Leadership then passed to Joshua, who led a series of campaigns against fortified Canaanite cities. Their victories resulted in the gradual settlement of the tribes across the region. The land's hills offered natural defense, its rivers supported farming communities, and its trade routes positioned them between major empires. Their arrival was not a single event, but a long process of battles, treaties, and expansion that transformed a wandering people into a nation rooted in a specific homeland. Over centuries, Israel saw a series of empires rise and fall. The Israelites built kingdoms, most famously under King David and Solomon. David established Jerusalem as the capital, uniting the tribes into a single kingdom and strengthening political control. Under Solomon, the kingdom reached a new level of prosperity as trade routes expanded and monumental building projects reshaped the landscape. The first temple became the center of worship, drawing thousands during festivals and symbolizing the unity of the nation. Its gold-covered surfaces and detailed carvings reflected the power and wealth Israel held at its peak. But the united monarchy did not last. After Solomon's death, disagreements over taxes and leadership caused the kingdom to split into two. Israel formed in the north and Judah in the south. This division weakened them, making it easier for powerful neighbors to intervene. The Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom in 722 BCE, scattering its population and absorbing the territory. Till date, this part of Israel remains lost. The Babylonians later took the southern kingdom in 586 BCE, destroyed the first temple, and forced thousands into exile. This event reshaped Jewish culture as new forms of worship and written traditions developed away from their homeland. When the Persians defeated Babylon, they allowed Jewish exiles to return to Jerusalem. This led to the construction of the Second Temple and a renewed sense of purpose. However, the region remained coveted by rising powers. When Alexander the Great expanded his empire, Greek influence swept across Judea, introducing new languages, customs, and political pressures. This sparked local resistance movements, including the Maccabean Revolt in the 2nd century BCE, which briefly restored Jewish independence and established the Hasmonean dynasty. But this was short-lived. Rome arrived next, bringing both order and harsh control. Roman taxation, military presence, and interference in religious leadership caused widespread resentment. These tensions eventually led to a major revolt. Rome crushed the uprising in 70 CE, destroyed the Second Temple, and sent many Jews into exile. A second revolt in 135 CE resulted in even harsher consequences as Judea was renamed and Jewish access to Jerusalem became restricted. Despite these setbacks, Jewish communities adapted by establishing learning centers in places like Babylon and North Africa, where traditions continued to evolve. Even after the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in 70 CE, the connection to the land endured. Jewish communities spread across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, but the memory of Canaan as a fertile, historically rich land remained central to Jewish identity. Rituals, holidays, and prayers constantly referenced Jerusalem and the Promised Land. Over time, these communities experienced both flourishing periods and severe persecution. Medieval Europe brought expulsions, forced conversions, and violent attacks. Eastern Europe saw the rise of restrictive laws that limited Jewish movement, residence, and professions. North African and Middle Eastern Jewish communities faced their own cycles of tolerance and pressure. Centuries of displacement shaped their longing for a homeland. By the 19th century, rising nationalism across Europe inspired new movements among Jewish thinkers who argued for a return to their ancestral land. The trauma of the Holocaust, which killed 6 million Jews, turned this aspiration into a global urgency. The devastation highlighted the dangers of statelessness and strengthened international support for a Jewish homeland. This tragic chapter, combined with centuries of diaspora suffering, laid the groundwork for the modern state of Israel. The modern state and early conflicts. The modern story of Israel begins in 1948, when the United Nations proposed dividing the British Mandate of Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. The Jewish community accepted the plan, declaring independence, but neighboring Arab nations immediately opposed it, leading to the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Jewish forces, organized into paramilitary groups, defended settlements and eventually expanded the new nation's borders. Tragedy struck as over 750,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled, their villages destroyed or seized. The events of 1948, known to Palestinians as the Nakba, continue to fuel resentment and shape regional tensions. Despite these challenges, Israel survived. In 1956, during the Suez Crisis, Israel invaded the Sinai Peninsula alongside France and Britain after Egypt nationalized the canal. The operation demonstrated Israel's military capabilities and strategic necessity for allies, especially the United States. Then came the Six-Day War of 1967. In just 6 days, Israel fought Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, capturing the West Bank, Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. The war shifted borders and perceptions. Israel's territory expanded, but the occupation of these areas created a new set of political and humanitarian challenges, especially regarding Palestinian populations. The Yom Kippur War in 1973 showed that Israel's victories were not guaranteed. Arab forces, now equipped with Soviet weaponry, launched a surprise attack on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. Israel's forces, reinforced by American support, turned the tide. Though Israel repelled the attack, the sense of invincibility was gone. This war set the stage for diplomacy. In 1978, U.S. President Jimmy Carter mediated negotiations between Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, leading to the Camp David Accords. Egypt became the first Arab nation to recognize Israel, and Israel withdrew from Sinai, a landmark compromise that highlighted the potential but fragility of peace. The Palestinian response to these events was complex. The Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO, was formed in 1964 and rose to prominence under Yasser Arafat in 1969. Fatah, its military branch, promoted armed resistance rather than dependence on Arab states. Israel's ongoing occupation of West Bank and Gaza refugee camps after the Six-Day War, coupled with UN resolutions calling for withdrawal, intensified the struggle. Arafat became a symbol of resistance, both admired and feared, while Israel continued settlement expansion and maintained security dominance. Tensions escalated further after the Camp David Accords, as some Palestinian groups rejected diplomacy. Jordan's Black September events forced the PLO to relocate to Lebanon, leading to repeated cycles of violence, including the Israeli-Lebanese War of 1982. Israel occupied southern Lebanon for 15 years to secure its borders, while Hezbollah emerged as a new adversary. By the late 1980s, conditions in the occupied territories sparked the First Intifada. Sparked by individual incidents, including vehicle collisions in Gaza, the uprising included protests, graffiti, barricades, and attacks on Israeli forces. Though the uprising was less deadly than wars before it, it created widespread fear and drew global attention to Palestinian grievances. The Madrid Conference in 1991 marked the first multilateral attempt at reconciliation, eventually leading to secret negotiations in Oslo. The Oslo Accords of 1993 officially recognized the PLO as the representative of the Palestinian people and established the Palestinian Authority. Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat shook hands, symbolizing hope, though many in both communities remained skeptical. Innovation, survival, and ongoing challenges. Israel's story is not only one of conflict, but also of resilience and innovation. Despite limited natural resources and surrounding hostility, Israel developed self-reliance as a national strategy. Leaders like Shimon Peres facilitated collaboration between the government, scientists, and private sector, pioneering nuclear research, missile defense systems such as the Iron Dome, and other technological advancements. Israel became known as the startup nation, beginning in the 1990s with figures like Yossi Vardi, whose work on ICQ revolutionized instant messaging. His success inspired a generation of entrepreneurs, attracting global tech giants like Intel and Microsoft to establish research centers in Israel. The technology boom extended beyond military applications, influencing agriculture, medicine, and cybersecurity. Israeli innovation became a global phenomenon, blending necessity with creativity. Cultural contributions also flourished. Literature, music, and arts reflected the nation's diversity, with writers such as Amos Oz and David Grossman exploring identity, and musicians blending traditional and modern influences. Israel's population includes descendants of European Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, and immigrants from across the world, each contributing to society and creating a dynamic mix of traditions and ideas. Politically, Israel remains complex. Figures like Benjamin Netanyahu have polarized opinion, with supporters praising security leadership while critics highlight internal inequalities and social divides. The Abraham Accords, mediated by the United States, normalized relations with several Arab nations, opening trade and travel, though tensions with Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas persist. Iran's nuclear ambitions and support for militant groups continue to be Israel's primary security concern. The West Bank barrier, ongoing settlement expansion, and the Gaza blockade illustrate the delicate balance between defense and diplomacy. Despite decades of wars and unrest, Israel has grown into a regional power with global influence. Its technological, military, and diplomatic achievements demonstrate the capacity of a small nation to survive and thrive under pressure. The unresolved Israeli-Palestinian conflict remains a central challenge, defined by contested Jerusalem, territorial disputes, and cycles of violence. Each negotiation, treaty, and conflict contributes to a long and layered history, showing that peace is possible but fragile. Israel's survival is a testament to strategy, resilience, and innovation, but the region remains one of the most volatile in the world. From ancient Canaan to a modern technological powerhouse, Israel's history is defined by survival, conflict, and creativity. Its people transformed adversity into innovation, yet challenges remain, especially with the Palestinians and regional tensions. Understanding this history is key to grasping the ongoing struggles and the potential for lasting peace in the Middle East. What do you think about Israel's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more. Your support means the world to us.